Initiation into Hermetics by Franz Bardon. The light. Light is established on the principle of fire. Light without fire is unconceivable. And for this particular reason, it is an aspect of the fire. Each fiery element can be converted into light and the other way around. Therefore, light involves all the specific qualities such as shining, penetrating, expanding. The opposite of light is darkness, which has to come out of the principle of water. Darkness has the contrasting specific qualities of the light. Without darkness, light would not only remain quite unrecognizable, but without darkness, there would never be any light at all. Evidently, light and darkness must have been produced by the mutual play of two elements, consequently those of fire and water. Light, in its outcome, therefore, has the positive quality, whereas darkness has the negative one. This interplay evidently is working in all regions. Akasha, or the Ethereal Principle. Several times while describing the elements, I have said that they proceed from the Ethereal Principle. Accordingly, the Ethereal Principle is the ultimate, the supreme, the most powerful thing, something unconceivable. The ultimate cause of all things existing and created. To put it in a nutshell, it is the causal sphere. Therefore, Akasha is spaceless and timeless. It is the non-created, the incomprehensible, the indefinable. The various religions have given it the name of God. It is the fifth power, the original power. Everything has been created by it and is kept in balance by it. It is the origin and the purity of all thoughts and intentions. It is the causal world wherein the whole creation is subsisting on, beginning from the highest spheres down to the lowest ones. It is the quintessence of the alchemists. It is the all in all. Excuse me. A bit croaky this evening. Karma, the law of cause and effect. An immutable law which has its aspect just in the Akasha principle is the law of cause and effect. Each cause sets free a corresponding effect. This law works everywhere as the most sublime rule. Consequently, every deed proceeds from a cause or is followed by any result. Therefore, we should not only accept karma as a rule for our good intentions, as the Oriental philosophy puts it, but its signification reaches further and is a very deep one. Instinctively, all men have the feeling that something good can bring good results only, and again, all the evil must end up with evil, or, in the words of a proverb, whatsoever a man soweth, that shall he also reap. Everybody is bound to know this law and to respect it. This law of cause and effect governs the elemental principles too. I have no intention to enter into details of this law, which could be expressed by a few words, as they are quite clear, so that every reasonable man will understand them. Subject to this law of cause and effect is also the law of evolution or development. Thus, development is an aspect of the karma law. Man, about the body. Man is the true image of God. He has been created in the likeness of the universe. Everything great to be found in the universe is reflected in a small degree in man. For this reason, man is signified as a microcosm in contrast to the macrocosm of the universe. Strictly speaking, the entire nature manifests itself in man, and it will be the task of this chapter to inform about these problems. I do not intend to describe the physical occurrences in the body because everybody can find information about it in any respective work. What I shall teach is to regard man from the Hermetic standpoint, and I shall enlighten interested people how to use the fundamental key, I mean the influence of the elements on man, in the right way. A well-known maxim says, "A sound mind in a sound body." The genuine truth of this aphorism presents itself immediately to everybody dealing with the problem of man. There surely will arise the question, what health is from the Hermetic point of view? Not everyone is capable to answer this question at the first instant. Seen from the Hermetic angle, health is the perfect harmony of all the forces operating inside the body with respect to the basic qualities of the elements. There need not prevail such a great disharmony of the element as to set free a visible effect which is called disease. For disharmony in the form of sickness is already an essential disturbance in the workshop of the elements inside the body. The main condition for the novice is to concentrate himself absolutely on his body. The outwardly visible expression of the body resembles that of a beautiful garment, and beauty in all its aspects is likewise an aspect of the divine nature. Beauty, properly speaking, is not only that which pleases us or appears to be sympathetic to our taste, because sympathy or antipathy are dependent on the interaction of the elements. Genuine health is rather a basic condition of our spiritual rising. If we like to live in beauty, we must form our house, our flat, or, in this case, our body, beautifully and fill it with harmony. Tea break. Dust cover keeps falling off. According to the universal law, the elements have to perform certain functions inside our body. These are mainly building up the body, keeping it alive, and dissolve it. The positive part in the body, the upbuilding, is therefore the business of the positive or active side of the elements. The preserving part is brought about by the linking or connecting part of the elements, i.e. the neutral, whereas the destructive or dissolving part in the body is realized by the negative qualities of the elements. It is obvious that the fiery principle in the active form with its electrical fluid will exert the active, expansive, building up influence. The contrary will be the case in the negative form. The watery principle in its active form will influence the building up activity. In its negative form, it will produce the disintegrating, dissolving activity of all the fluids in the body. With the principle of air rests the task of controlling the electrical fluid of the fire and the magnetic fluid of the water in the body, keeping them in balance. For this reason, it has been characterized as the neutral or mediating element. It has been said in the fundamental key about the forces of the principle of earth that it has the function inside the body to keep together the influences of all the three elements. In the active form of the earthy elemental principle, it has an animating, vivifying, invigorating influence, and in the negative form, it is the other way round. The earthy principle is responsible for the thriving as well as for the aging of the body. We could mention quite a lot of analogies with respect to the influence of the elements inside the body, but let it be enough with the foregoing explanations. Adepts of all periods never described the effects of the elements in particular, probably to avoid any misuse, but they did know very well all about it. They divided man in three basical conceptions, attributing the head to the fiery principle, the abdomen to that of water, and the chest to the airy one as the mediating principle between fire and water. How very right they were with their dividing man becomes obvious at the first look, because all that is active or fiery takes place in the head. In the abdomen it must be the contrary, the watery, the secretion, the work of the saps, etc. The chest underlies the air and has a mediating part, because here breathing takes place quite mechanically. The earthy principle, with its cohesive power or ability of holding together, represents the whole of the human body with all its bones and flesh. Now the question will arise, where and how Akasha, or the etheric principle, occurs in the grossly material body. In doing some deeper thinking, everybody will be able to answer this question by himself. For the etheric principle is hidden in its most grossly material form, in the blood and in the seed, and in the reciprocal action of these two substances in the vital matter, or in the vitality. As we have learned, the fiery element produces the electrical and the water element the magnetic fluid. Each of these fluids has two pole radiations, an active and a passive one, and the mutual influences and interactions of all the radiations of four poles resemble a tetrapolar magnet, which is identical to the secret of the tetragrammaton, the Yod-He-Vah-He of the Kabbalists. Therefore, the electromagnetic fluid in the human body in its emanation is the animal magnetism, the odd, or whatever name it has been given. The right side of the human body is active electric, providing the individual be a right-handed one. The left side is passive magnetic. As for a left-handed person, the contrary will take place. The emanative power of this electromagnetic fluid is dependent on the capacitance, i.e., the intensity of action of the elements inside the body. The more harmoniously this action of the elements is going on in the body, all the stronger and purer this emanation will be. With the help of certain exercises, as well as by a correct attitude and an exact observance of these rules, the capacitance, strength and influence of this electromagnetic fluid, or odd, can be increased or diminished according to whatever necessity requires. The way of doing it will exhaustively be illustrated in the practical part of the present work. The electrical as well as the magnetical fluid in the human body have directly nothing to do with the kind of electricity or magnetism we know, although a certain analogy exists. This law of analogy is a very important factor in the Hermetic science, and the knowledge of it enables the adept to perform great miracles with the aid of this key. The food contains the elements mingled with each other, the result of taking in food in a chemical process by which the elements are preserved in our body. From the medical point of view, the taking in of any kind of food together with the breathing causes a process of combustion. The Hermeticist sees far more in this process than just a simple chemical event. He regards this combustion as the mutual dissolving of food, just like the fire is kept burning by fuel. Therefore, the whole life depends on the continuous supply of fuel that is the food and the breathing. To supply every element with the necessary preserving substances, a mixed food is advisable which contains the fundamental materials of the elements. If we were to restrict our whole life to a one-sided kind of food only, our body would, without any doubt, fall ill. That means such a kind of food would produce a disharmony in the body. By the disintegration of air and food, the elements are provided with the supporting substances, and this way their activity is maintained. Such is man's natural mode of life. If any element is missing, as it were, the fuel, all the functions depending on it are immediately affected. If, for example, the fiery element in the body works excessively, we feel thirsty. The airy element makes us feel hungry. The element of water causes a feeling of cold, and the earthy element produces tiredness. On the other hand, every oversaturation of the elements causes reinforced effects in the body. A surplus of fiery element creates a yearning for movement and activity. If this be the case with the watery element, the secretive process will be stronger. Any oversaturation of the airy element indicates that we must be moderate in taking food at all. An oversaturation of the earthy element affects the aspects of sexual life, which must not necessarily find expression in the sexual instinct in the fleshly sense. It is quite possible, and this will especially occur in the case of elderly people, that they feel a longing for increased activity and for productive agility. In their active and passive polarity, the electric and the magnetic fluids have the task of forming acid combinations in all the organic and anorganic bodies from the chemical point of view, eventually from the alchemistic standpoint too. In the active sense, they are constructive, and in the negative sense, they are destructive, dissolving and disintegrating. All this explains the biological functions in the body. The final result is the circulation of life, which is brought into existence, thrives, ripens, and fades away. This is the sense of evolution of all things created.